We have some hairs. Damn it. Oh.
In a world where nuclear war has begun, vampires fought back in super real 3D.
Weddings. Some videographers might say that they hate them. Some people would think that that could be lower rung work. I think the reason that it's associated as that is because a lot of people that start off with trying to do videography, they start in the realm of making wedding videos. But wedding videos have become something else entirely different than what they used to be. It used to be just a camera on a tripod. One angle, really boring and drawn out, and I'm wording this wrong. Crappy. But nowadays, we've really upped the game on what can be done. The cameras are better than ever, sound equipment's better than ever, availability to lights. There's just a lot more artists involved with cameras and editing than there ever has been.
Welcome all who have gathered here this day to share in this marriage ceremony of Anna Marie Wright and Ryan Timothy Shealy.
The most caring guy I've ever met, the sweetest guy I've ever met.
She's been absolutely amazing.
She's definitely the one for him.
And so now, wedding films have become something of a real art, and you can make them insanely captivating, and they can be really fun to edit. I will say the hardest part of weddings is honestly the day of filming itself. You might think that that might be easier because there's a formula to a wedding, you would think. You follow the schedule, you know when everything's gonna happen, you know, you're not even having to necessarily come up with a exact story idea. It kind of unfolds itself, but in fact, on a wedding day, you know, you're a part of the equation of insanity. Everything's going off left and right, everybody's running a little behind schedule, some things aren't working, weather conditions might be happening. Depending on the place that you're filming a wedding, you could be spread apart, you know, across an insanely large environment where, you know, grooms are getting ready in one building and the bridesmaids are getting ready in another, and then you got to get ready for the ceremony that's happening in another spot, and depending on what you're doing, you know, you're literally just running to all these places across potentially, you know, hundreds of yards between each other if you're lucky sometimes. It is crazy. The kind of wedding films that end up doing here end up being usually about an hour if it's a full wedding film. But the other thing we do are these highlight reels, and highlight reels are really awesome. I always try to convince any of my clients that sign on for a wedding that if we're doing a wedding film, let's also make a highlight reel from it. Because building a highlight reel from a wedding film ultimately is really the best way to make a highlight reel. Because you get to cultivate everything into an hour-long presentation, hour-long film, and then you get to distill that into the best parts that you can think of to tell the quickest story.
He is my exact opposite in some ways, and I feel like that is what makes us kind of mesh together really well.
I always have so much fun with her. I love how she likes to be very spontaneous. She's like, you know, let's go do this.
Anna, Ryan is going to be your ground and your safety. He's the stability that you need in your life. And Ryan, Anna's the spontaneity you didn't know you needed.
So there's just no way to explore it to that extent if you're going and making straight right into a highlight reel. But highlight reels by themselves, even if that's the only thing we're doing, still come out really cool and awesome. And I wish I had one. You know, I didn't get to film my own wedding, and even back then I didn't have equipment like this. So anyway, very cool in that regard. The editing takes a while. I mean, you have the one day of filming, and then editing runs. I mean, it easily takes a month to edit a wedding, and that's if you're really, really focused. Then there's the color grading and the audio. But when it comes to editing, you know, you don't have to think of everything totally linearly. You can jump around a little bit, and you should really open your mind up to pulling different aspects of the day together to be stories that otherwise wouldn't have been. Because, you know, when you've got this footage of the bridesmaids talking about something, and then you've got the groomsmen talking about something, and you didn't, you know, even know that they would bring these things up, but here they both talked about it, you got this footage about it, and you bring it together, and then you interweave it together, you've got this awesome, I mean, it's like, it's a straight up TV show at that point.
But did you see the timeline?
I did.
And did you see the roles and responsibilities?
It's really,
it's like an SOG. The purpose of
of this policy is to designate roles and responsibilities to all party members. And then all the bridesmaids, their names are broken down, and then it gets to the groomsmen. It's like, groomsmen, just show up.
Yeah,
Just,
it really does.
show up.
It seems like you have a gap.
Don't forget your outfit.
Just show up.
Like,
Oh, here comes it.
I'm playing Jackie, man. I just got some fruit. So that's what I think about Congress passing these laws.
I know, it's just crazy.
One thing that's very different about a wedding shoot versus a lot of the productions that I do is that a wedding shoot's a live event. And live event filming is very, very different than trying to script exact things and plan out an exact storyboard of things and setting up shots and lighting them, etc. I still try to light what I can during the day of filming a little bit, but realistically, you're going to miss too many things if you're not just focused more on filming and good composition and keeping up with all the aspects that are happening between the dynamics of people.
I'm gonna have you stay in the middle. You guys are all gonna kind of be sideways and tilt forward.
Okay.
And then fake laugh.
I lost count of how many cups of coffee I had.
yes, or how many glasses of mimosa you've had.
You're a little more limited. You got to stay more on the go and think more about content than you are about, well, really, than you can take the time to create these exact perfect shots that I would like in a music video or a product commercial or something like that. So they are a different thing. And also because they're live events, anytime I'm doing a live event, I really have to bring on additional camera operators. So in the last wedding that I did, the one that you're really seeing throughout this video, this was the Sheely wedding, and I brought on Jonathan Thorpe and also Ian Weir. Both did a great job on filming, and I couldn't have done it without them. The thing about weddings versus commercial work or music videos, which is, I mean, there's other things, and documentaries and films, etc., but the main things that I make are commercials and music videos. And the thing about both of those things is that, you know, getting a lot of views is what it's all about. I mean, it's all about making art, but it's about making something that's going to be captivating enough that it generates a ton of people to hopefully watch it, you know, and get a lot of exposure for the artist or the product, etc. With a wedding, the end result is that not nearly as many people are going to see it, and for good reason. The wedding couple doesn't even necessarily want everyone to see it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's never going to generate the amount of plays that something like the Bandit video with Burt Reynolds is going to do, or, you know, some other music video. It's just not going to do that.
Yeah. Honey, hush.
The feedback that you get from the clients when it's something so personal for them on such an important occasion, it's so meaningful to them that the feedback that you get is like, it can feel way better than doing something that's commercial based, where every frame is analyzed and scrutinized for its legitimacy and relevancy to what's, you know, what we need to be talking about or showing. And it's just a different thing, and that has its own merit of enjoyment and fulfillment, and that's great. But you get this whole other thing with a wedding where it's just so personal. You get to connect with them on such a deep level, and know that it's just for them, and still be okay with that and feel very fulfilled doing that. So I really like to do weddings. However, I only get to do maybe one a year. I'd be open to doing more than that, but I usually stay so busy with commercial work, and that's just kind of how it works out. Another nice thing about when you're editing a wedding versus like commercial work or a music video is that depending on what the artist wants or the company wants with their product, I feel like wedding videos are an immediate opportunity to make something that's a little bit more playful. And you can kind of experiment more and do things that are somewhat comedic and fun and lighthearted, and it's completely okay. And you can eat up some time doing that. With a commercial or a music video, every single second counts. And there's this effort to basically, most times, consolidate it down to where it is something, you know, that's condensed and it's as tight and powerful as possible. In a full wedding film, you really get to let it breathe. I mean, you're making a movie, and in a movie, you get to finally let things just kind of breathe a little bit more. You can have a little bit more fun in the editing room, making things playful, where you're stitching things together that don't have to sell the product or something, and it's gonna get a laugh, and you try to be sensitive to things that you think the wedding couple and their family would find amusing. It doesn't have to be amusing universally.
We ain't scared, give it the juice. Oh, you ain't gonna hurt us.
It just has to be amusing to them, and it's amusing to them because of, over the course of that filming day, you've gotten to feel out the different characters, the different groomsmen and bridesmaids and the parents, and what their style of humor is, and some running theme of a joke that they think is funny, and you become sensitive to that, and when you're putting all that together, it's a lot of fun. One of the confusing things that's starting to kind of emerge over the course of this new technology is that cameras, like all the cameras that we're filming with, are filming in at least 4K resolution. And with 4K, you can pull out any frame as a picture, like a great, beautiful size print. You could take that to the print shop and print it. So when we're making a wedding video, we're also kind of doing a photo shoot at the same time. And that's really powerful. So even if you have a photographer that you do bring on for the day, you still get this extra at the end of every project I do for a wedding. You're gonna get a digital folder that's filled with several hundred pictures from your wedding that was pulled out of the footage. So that's pretty cool, and that's just an advantage of where the technology's gotten to. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think it's a really cool extra perk when they find out about that for their wedding packages. At the end of the day, though, you do kind of get what you pay for when it comes to a wedding video. Because realistically, to make a wedding video, they are very intense productions. You have to have multiple shooters on the day of. You got to do some planning ahead of time and figuring out what the arrangements are for the day. You go and check out the venue. I like to go to rehearsal night and get one last go at seeing how the flow of events is going to happen, planning out some shots, where I might set up interviews, etc. Then you film. At the end of the day, with 3 shooters, you're going to end up with roughly 12 to 14 hours of footage. It's all at 4K or higher resolution. It's an insane amount of data to capture, back up, and then put together and go through, and then, like I said, it takes at least a month of editing to do a wedding. So it's a lot of effort. Now, could it be done simpler than that? Absolutely, it can. And there's a lot of options out there if you're just trying to document the day and have something. So you can find a single shooter with a single camera, but I think the things that you should know immediately are that you're not really gonna, in 90% of cases, you're going to have to understand that you're going to have much more minimal audio. You're going to have, it's mostly going to be a visual with music, which can be very cool. And you're definitely not going to be able to catch everything. There's just, it is impossible as one person to be in 3 places at one time. And your ceremony will be very compromised because it's a live thing. It's only happening once. You can't ask them to redo anything. They're going to have to set up and get that one shot. So it's a very different thing. It's more about just knowing that you got a documented thing with the one shooter. The only kind of weddings that I take on are ones where I can either make like a full highlight reel film, or like a full wedding film, or there's other ideas that I would like to do with some wedding couples that I have listed in my package options that aren't even necessarily on the wedding day, but can be used in the wedding film. And so I'd actually get up with the wedding couple in a cool place, and we would do some scripted, planned stuff and get some different interview stuff there, and then combine that into the wedding. And I've got some, and hopefully at some point I'll get the opportunity to do that. Just haven't gotten to do it quite yet with the wedding couples. So if you have any questions, look me up. If you're interested in doing a wedding or something, definitely inquire with me. And if you haven't seen this highlight reel, check it out.
Movie Voice.